everyone, I'm Loida. I'm here today with Maria. She has been shadowing me for the past few months, and TBC, very excited to have her on this video today because she recently got her real estate license. Now, I get a lot of questions from you guys that are always asking me what the process is like, whether you should take your certification courses online or at a brokerage. So I figured what a better person to answer those questions than to have her, since she just went through everything. So Maria, for those that are watching, can you just kind of explain, when did you start your process of, well, first of all, when did you decide that you wanted to get into real estate?
I decided last year around March. And when I decided that I was gonna save my money, because when I did get into real estate, I wanted to go in full time and I wanted to be okay financially. So I gave myself until the beginning of this year to actually go to school. So I started school the first week of January 2018.
Okay. So you actually went to a brokerage, right?
Yes, I actually went.
Did you think of possibly doing it online before, or what made you want to do it in person?
I did. I thought about it a lot online or in person. The reason I wanted to do it in person was because I thought I was gonna get experience with students and with teachers and maybe meet people, which actually didn't end up happening. So if I could say to do it online, I would rather go with that.
Okay, so for anyone that's wondering whether you should do it online or do it at a brokerage, you've heard it from her. She did it at a brokerage, but she would probably, you would go back and just do it online, right?
Yeah, I would, because I mean, if you really want to do it and you really want to finish, it's really up to you. You can, of course, you can do it at your own pace in school or online. So it's really up to you, but I would say to do it online.
Yeah, and I myself did it online. I remember it took me like 3 months. The good thing about doing it online is many times it is less expensive. You could do it much faster and you could do it at your own speed. So for you that you did it at a brokerage, what was the environment like? And how long did it take for you to actually get your certification courses before you sent in everything to get your license?
So it took me 12 weeks. The environment, it was okay, but I was telling Loida that I was the only one that went every single week. It takes you 12 weeks if you really actually go every single week. It only takes you 12 weeks to take your 3 exams and finish all the classes. So I was the only one that actually showed up every single week. So, you know, the students that I wanted to be around with, they weren't there. They wouldn't even show up. So it was kind of like pointless, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
And your teacher, it's not, you had mentioned earlier, the teacher wasn't on top of everyone, right?
No.
It's not like you're forced to be there every single session.
No.
People would just go at their own speed and whenever they wanted to.
Yeah. So basically you have to take your 3 exams to get your certificates. And if you feel that you're not ready, you don't have to take them that day. So the teachers are very flexible, which is good, but is also very bad. Because, you know, there's some people that need somebody to be on top of them. And if you're that type of person, you're not gonna have that in class. So you just need to be on top of everything yourself.
Okay. Now, do you have an idea, or do you remember how much it was?
The price of the... It was around $250, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, I paid around $169. So that right there shows you another difference on the prices. So I got it done faster when I took it compared to what Maria is explaining as to how long it has taken her. Now let's fast forward to 2 weeks ago, which is when you finally got your real estate license, right? Now let's backtrack a little bit. So when you did get your certification courses, when was that?
It was the middle of March.
Okay, the middle of March. So then from there, how did you prepare? What was the next step to send out your application to the state, or what was it like? So for anyone that's watching that's in California, what would you say would be the next thing to do? What website do they have to go? What form do they have to do? Just like anything.
Okay, so when you get your certificates, my teacher gave me a list of things that I had to get done. Even before I got my certificates, I asked him for all that information. You need your thumbprints. You need a check of $350, I think it is, to process the license. And you need to fill out some forms. So that's basically, I had done all of that even before I had gotten my certificates. So the day that I actually got my certificates, I sent everything out. So if you can do that so that way the process is way faster for you and less stressful as well.
Yeah, and out here in California, there are so many people wanting to get their real estate license that even at the board of real estate up north in Sacramento, they're super backed up, and you want to have all of your documents in order, fill them out, send them on time so that you're not waiting months in order for your things to be processed, so that once you have your certification courses, you have already taken your thumbprints and just anything that's necessary to expedite the process. Now, from when you sent all that in, how long did it take for you to finally hear back or get a letter to schedule your license exam?
It took me about 2.5 months. I didn't hear back till mid-May or beginning of June, I think it was. And I would try to call and ask if my license, if everything was being processed. I would have to be on hold for about an hour.
Wow.
So I would say what you could do is see if the check that you sent cleared. Because once that check clears, that means that your application is getting processed. And then after that, well, I had a bit of a problem with my name. I put the wrong, I didn't know you had to put your full name. So that kind of delayed everything by 2 months. But besides that, all you really need is the forms, the fingerprint, and the certificates, and that's it.
Okay, so you mentioned that you had an issue with your name. So let's say somebody that's watching has maybe a first name, a middle name, and a last name, or 2 last names. How are you supposed to write it in? Like how it shows up in your social security, or what would you say?
I would say just exactly how it is on your ID. Exactly how it is. I had actually asked my teacher if I could just put my first and last name, and he said that was fine, but you actually just have to, whatever your name is on your ID, that's what you should put on, that's what you need to put on your application, or else it's gonna delay everything by maybe like 2 months like it did for me.
Okay, so that's a tip. Always go based off of what's on your driver's license, your ID, in order to make sure that all of your documents are processed on time. Otherwise, if you have a delay, it's gonna take forever and ever, and then next thing you know, it's been a whole year. Okay, so now you've scheduled your license exam. Prior to that, so you got your letter, right? How far in advance, or when did you schedule your test?
Once I got the email saying that I could schedule my test, I scheduled it 3 weeks after that. So that gave me 3 weeks to study, but I was actually studying way before that. I wanted to make sure that I was prepared. So I actually started studying in the beginning of May, at least 30 minutes. And then after that, after I actually got the okay to set up my exam, I would study for minimum 3 hours a day.
Okay. So you have been studying even before you got the chance to schedule your license?
Yeah.
So is that something that you recommend whoever's watching, whoever wants their license
Yeah,
to do?
definitely, because you know, if you're really gonna take this serious, you need to take steps way before you should. Prepare yourself. I didn't know that I was gonna be behind 2 months, but I was still studying, and once I did find out that everything was gonna get delayed, I didn't think about it in a bad way. It just gave me more time to study. So whenever you can, just study that way. You know, you don't have to take the exam like 6 times. And whenever you get that email like, hey, you know, you can set up your exam date, you feel somewhat confident, but then you start studying even more to feel confident when the actual day comes.
Yeah, and don't feel like you have to be rushed and schedule your test to be the next day or the following week. You want to take everything calmly. I remember when I got my letter, I scheduled my test for a month after, just because I wanted to make sure that I had enough time to study every single day. I remember when I was studying, it was probably between an hour and a half every single night leading up to the exam. Now, what made me different than Maria is that I hadn't been preparing since the entirety of me getting my certification courses. For me, it was kind of like, I got my certification courses, now I'm learning my scripts, I'm out shadowing, door knocking. I wasn't really focusing on studying. I was doing it, but I wasn't doing consistently. It wasn't until I knew I had a test date that I was like, okay, I need to get it together and study every single night. But for you that had been studying, once you had scheduled your test date, how long were you studying every single night, if you were? And also, what programs or what crash courses were you doing, or would you recommend someone to consider?
Okay. So I actually got on Prep Agent. I started in May. Like I said, I would study for about 30 minutes every single day, or every other day. And then after that, 3 weeks before I took my actual exam, I would study minimum 3 hours. And in Prep Agent, there's about 10 different exams that you can take. And I would take the test 90% or above 3 times. I would have to get 90% or above 3 times and then move on to the next one. That way I know that for that subject I am okay for that. I feel confident that I can pass.
Okay, so Prep Agent, was that the only source and the only program that you really stuck to the whole time that you were studying leading up to the test?
Yeah, exactly. They did give us little booklets at school. They actually sent us an email once you get all your certifications. They send you an email on things to study. But I knew that I wasn't gonna go through all of those pages. So what I decided to do was actually go on Prep Agent and take a whole bunch of exams and just prepare myself for it. And that's the only thing that I did.
Okay, awesome. And I'm gonna put a link in the description box below for Prep Agent in case any of you are interested in taking a look at that or possibly subscribing to it so that you can start preparing for the state exam. Okay, so now we're at the test date. It's your test date. You wake up in the morning, you show up. What are you feeling and what is it like?
Honestly, I felt pretty confident because I had studied so much before. It was kind of weird walking in. It feels like it's a very secure place, kind of like a prison, because you're assigned a locker. You have to put your phone and your keys away once you go up to the desk to give all your information that you're gonna take your test. They make you pat down your pockets, pull down your sleeves if you have any. Even when you are taking the exam and you want to go out to the bathroom, you have to do all that stuff again. So they're very, very strict, so be prepared for that.
Okay, so once they check you and everything, what's the next process? From what I remember, they give you a mouse, they kind of take you to a computer lab area, right?
Yeah.
Also back then, and I took my test back in 2015, but I don't think the process has changed that much. The computers are like under a table, right? So you can't see your neighbors or what they're looking at. So they hand you your mouse. What else do they give you? They
give you your little locker key. So that's where you put all your belongings. Don't worry about your phone and all that stuff. All that stuff you put in your locker. They give you your little locker key, your mouse, and you have to put your ID right in front of your desk wherever you're taking your exam. They also give you like a little whiteboard, a marker to write on there, and that's pretty much it. And like Loida said, the screens are in the bottom, so you can't see anybody else's screen, and there's like 2 to 3 people walking around while you're taking your exam, so it is very, very strict.
Yeah, so then once you're done, do you raise your hand or do you go up to the front?
So once you're done, you just get your belongings, your mouse. Your mouse is basically what you give to them once you're done. So that you give them your mouse, you keep your little key, and you have to pat yourself down again, pull your sleeves down, and then you go around and you give them all your information. And they give you papers that are actually stapled together, and they tell you, okay, here are your results, but don't open them until you get downstairs. So you don't know your result right there when they give you the paper. You have to wait till you go downstairs. And if you do pass, it doesn't tell you how much you passed by. It just says, congratulations, you passed. Like, that's all you really need to know. That's what the letter says.
Yeah. And I know that if you don't pass, it will tell you like how much you missed it for or what your actual score was. Now, you took it one time, you passed the first time. How many questions is the exam?
It's 150 questions. When I took it, there was no math questions. I actually studied for the math questions, but they just took them out like 2 weeks ago, so I got pretty lucky.
So no more math.
No more math, so don't worry about that. But it is 150 questions, and you have about 3 hours to take the exam.
And how many do you have to get right in order to pass?
You have to get 105 to pass. That's how many.
Now, was there a strategy that you used to help you pass the first time, or what would you recommend somebody do?
Yeah, so the strategy that I used was actually the strategy that Loida used. I learned from her. So you go through the test, you only answer the ones that you know, that you're absolutely positive that are correct, You go through all of the questions, and then you go back and answer the ones that you're not sure about. And the ones that you're not sure about, once you have answered them, if you're really not sure about it, you know, put a little tally mark on the little whiteboard. All right, I for sure don't know if I'm getting this one right. And you do that for every single question that you're not absolutely sure about. And then that way it gives you kind of an idea. All right, this is how many questions I'm not sure that I'm gonna get correctly. And if, of course, if you have more than 45 questions, then, you know, that's pretty bad because you need 105 to pass. So I would just say keep on going until you get about to 45 questions that you're not sure about. That way you for sure will pass.
Yeah, and you can keep going back and forth between the questions. It's not like you have to answer each and every single one concurrently. And I remember when I took it, I kept on going back because there were many times that I had answered a question and then I remembered the answer for another one, so then I would just go back.
Yeah.
Now, are there any final tips or anything that you want to share with anyone that's maybe in the process of getting their license or just starting the looking for an online course, or whether or not they should go into real estate?
I would say if you really want to do real estate, definitely go into it, but go into actually knowing that you're going to do it and give it your all. And then once you start the process of actually getting your license, go to school. Make sure that you're actually prepared to take your exams. Like I said, they're not going to push you in school. It's just going to be you. So make sure that you're getting all of that stuff done. And tips, you know, just study as much as you can, because at the end of the day, the more you study, the less work you're gonna have to do at the end, because the more you study, that means that you're only gonna have to take your exam once. If you really don't prepare yourself, then you're just setting yourself up for failure, and you're gonna have to take it twice, 3, 4, 5 times, you never know. So just make sure, just put in all the work right now, so at the end you can just pass your exam the first try.
First time, yeah, because you can't just go and wing it at the state exam. That's not gonna happen. You're not gonna pass, because there are gonna be questions that are gonna go right over your head and you're gonna be like, man, I really should have studied.
Yeah, exactly.
And just like we mentioned earlier, based on her experience, based on my experience, we would highly recommend that you just do it online, because you're just gonna get your money's worth. It's cheaper, it's faster, and you're gonna do it at your own speed.
Exactly.
So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video and found it helpful. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. I will be putting some links in the description box for prep agents and any other online courses that I recommend. And until next time, I'll see you guys.